Title matches, debuts, injuries, and two gay boys sleeping with the Fishies. NXT Spring Breakin 2023 had it all. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Wrestling for the review. It was the special event, quote, special event. I mean, it's not really a special event. It's kind of just like a normal edition of NXT, but they give it a special label. They give it a title, I guess, just to try and make the normal episode feel a little bit better, add a little bit more prestige to it, add a little bit more hype to it, and I guess try and get a better rating. Now, back in the day, I remember TNA used to do this stuff. It's like when they couldn't afford to run the monthly pay-per-views anymore, TNA used to do like 12 monthly pay-per-views. Then they stopped doing them. They cut down the number of pay-per-views, I believe, at first to 4, and then they cut them down to 2. And then after that, they were doing like, you know, like a monthly special. It would be Impact, but they would give it like a special name, just like NXT are doing. And at the start, when TNA were doing it, you know, I thought it was cheap. I didn't really like it, but looking back now, you know, I think it does make sense. Especially for like smaller brands or smaller companies that don't have a pay-per-view at the end of every month, and they're having to try and have feuds, and they want to try and give these feuds and give these title matches some form of payoff. I think it does actually make a bit of sense, rather than just NXT having, what, 4 or 5 pay-per-views a year. I think it's different now that they can do little events like these. And even though they're not like a featured length pay-per-view, they still feel like a pretty big show. And it does feel better than your average NXT. So yeah, I was a little bit unsure about these when they first introduced them. But now I actually believe they are a good idea. And we kick off NXT Spring Breakin with a trunk match. Yes, it's Tony D and Channing Stacks Lorenzo taking on Pretty Deadly. We have a 1947 custom Dodge. It's believed to be Tony's uncle's car or whatever, so he's gave him the car. And I mean, I guess if they're using the family's car, then the family have to win. Pretty entertaining match, and the family do win. Elton Prince and Kit Wilson originally got Stacks into the trunk of the car first, and then they were going to add Tony D in, but when they opened up the boot, Stacks was there with a fire extinguisher, and he was like spraying it in their face. This caused a distraction, and this allowed the family to put Pretty Deadly into the trunk and win the match. So it was kind of like an ambulance match, kind of like a buried alive match. It's the same concept. You had to get your opponents into the trunk and close the boot of the trunk to win the match. It was fun. Good match to kick off the show, very entertaining. And then we're not done. We see Tony D and Stacks getting into the car, and they drive out the arena with Pretty Deadly still in the trunk. So it was a good opening. I liked it. You had some other weapons at ringside. There was like a paddling pool, a small pool that Stacks did like a back body drop onto Pretty Deadly into the pool. It was like full of inflatable stuffs and balls and shit like that. It was good. It was enjoyable. Then we see Tiffany Stratton arriving to the show in a car, dressed in a nice pink outfit. She insults Roxanne Perez in both the NXT Women's Champion. She says that Roxanne Perez is so 2022 and she is 20 Tiffany. So yeah, there you go. Tiffany Stratton saying that tonight is 20 Tiff, and she's going to win the NXT Women's Championship. We then see Duke Hudson. He's backstage with Andre Chase. Duke tells Chase he's next, but Chase is gathering his thoughts. Duke says he missed the other students tonight, so it'll just be these two out there. So they're definitely planning Duke turning heel. Although, let's be honest, would the other students really be able to help Andre Chase? I mean, there's no one's even got a name apart from Thea Hall. And what is she going to do against Braun Breaker? I know in WWE they like to have the women beat up the men, but let's be honest, Thea Hall's not doing anything to Braun Breaker. So I get what they're trying to like stack the odds against Chase here, but I mean, with the uni or without the uni, Chase is going to get battered by Braun tonight, so I didn't really get that. But Duke gets Chase fired up, and Chase says he's going to give Braun Breaker a Chase University-sized ass whooping. Is he telling the truth? No, it turns out he was lying because he got battered. Yeah, he got beat up, and Braun Breaker beat Andre Chase pretty quickly, and that was it, really. After the match, he put the Steiner recliner on him. Braun looked at Duke. Duke looked at Braun. Duke could have got in the ring, I guess, and helped Andre chase if he wanted to, but he stayed on the outside. He didn't want any of Braun Breaker, and who can blame him? Braun Breaker destroying people like he is a tank, and we'll see more of that later on tonight. We then got a hype video package for the NXT champion Carmelo Hayes. Then Mackenzie Mitchell is trying to have a word with the family when they're driving off. She sees Eli Dragunov arrive. She's trying to get an interview with him, but he gets attacked by D-Jack, and D-Jack beats him up backstage, and he like throws him underneath like the shutters, like these like electronic shutters, and then he forces him under the shutters and slams the shutters like onto his chest, trapping him there, and then a bunch of referees and security have to come and help out Dragunov. So yeah, D-Jack looking strong backstage, beating up Eli Dragunov. And yeah, but we've seen this spot a lot of times now in recent years where they trap somebody underneath these shutters, but I mean, whatever. Then we got Lyra Valkyria versus Cora Jade. I thought the match was pretty sloppy. I mean, it is what it is. The finish of this match was really weird. Jade got her bat. The referee then took the bat off Jade, and this supposedly, you know, bought Jade time to do an underhanded move on Lyra Valkyrie. But I mean, they're claiming she did a chop block. It looked more like a low blow to me, which is weird. And I'm not saying it was a low blow, but like the contact where Cora hit Jade, that's where it looked. Now they're saying it was a chop block. Why would Cora Jade need the referee to be distracted to do a chop block on Lyra Valkyrie? And, you know, they wouldn't do a low blow in a women's match either. It was just sloppy. The finish was sloppy, and then this allowed Cora Jade to hit the DDT for the 1, 2, 3. So, yeah, Cora Jade gets the win. I think I predicted Lyra Valkyrie up to this moment. I got the opening 2 matches correct, but yeah, I was wrong here. I said Lyra Valkyrie would win. I think I said Lyra Valkyrie. Or did I say Cora? I honestly can't remember. Maybe I did say Cora Jade. I'm not too sure. Anyway, let's move on to the next match. We still see the family. We see the family driving around outside of the arena. They're sitting in the front, and Tony D's like, "Do you hear that? Can you hear something?" And they stop the car, and Stacks gets out. He goes to the trunk. He lifts up the trunk, and he starts beating the shit and slamming the trunk down on Pretty Deadly. Then he jumps back in the car, and he says to Tony D that he can't hear anything. So I know, not a nice wee segment here. They laugh, and then they drive off into the night, saying how this has been an easy night's work for them. NXT title match up next. Grayson Waller versus Carmelo Hayes. Grayson Waller comes out with his model friend. She's like dressed in gold, and she's got the golden sneaker with her, I guess, ready so that Grayson Waller can do a shoey when he beats Carmelo Hayes. We get the match. I mean, the match was okay. Carmelo Hayes took out Trick Williams to make it 1-on-1, which it just doesn't really make sense. Carmelo Hayes having the numbers advantage when he is the face, and it looked like Trick Williams was actually the one that was going to attack Grayson Waller. Now, you could argue Grayson Waller was throwing chairs into the ring, but still, it looked like the face was going to attack the heel, so... And they have the numbers advantage, so that didn't make a lot of sense. But Grayson Waller starts beating him up with the steel chairs, and then Trick Williams has to get helped to the back, and then we got a back and forward match. Both hit their big moves. Grayson Waller hit a big elbow drop from the top of the rope through the announce table, but this wasn't enough to get the victory. Carmelo Hayes kicked out. Then Grayson Waller was on the outside. He tried to roll in to do his stunner type maneuver, but he seemed to like catch his leg on the rope, and then he feigned an injury, I'm assuming, because it didn't look like he got hurt, but he was pretending to be injured, and Carmelo Hayes then countered the move and then hit his diving top rope leg drop to get the win. So Carmelo Hayes beat Grayson Waller. Now, we could argue Grayson Waller got injured, but still, it felt like a pretty clean win to me, and that's Grayson Waller now been beat. But in the last 3 big matches he's had, he's been beat pretty convincingly. He's been beat by Carmelo Hayes, he was beat by Johnny Gargano, and he was beat by Braun Breaker. It's like, I don't know, this guy should be the next big NXT star, in my opinion. He should be the next person to hold the NXT championship, yet for some reason or another, he seems to keep losing these big matches. So, yeah, I'm not convinced. I'm not saying you can't lose matches, but, I mean, I was expecting I don't know, a more dodgy finish, I guess. But that's, like I said, that's... Then after the match, Carmelo Hayes grabbed the mic. Trick Williams came out again to celebrate with him, and he challenged Braun Breaker. He says that Braun Breaker thinks he's bad, thinks he's tough, he's running about in black trunks and whatever, beating up people. Well, why doesn't he come out and try and face Carmelo Hayes? Carmelo Hayes says he knows, he doesn't care if Braun Breaker doesn't want to face him. He wants to face Braun, so he challenges Braun. Braun then comes out, spears Trick Williams in half, and then lifts up Carmelo Hayes and hits a bunch of power moves on Hayes before locking in the Steiner recliner on Trick Williams. So it looks like we are going to get the rematch, which I am shocked, because I thought the reason Braun Breaker was avoiding Carmelo Hayes over the past few weeks is because he would be getting called up in the draft. So the fact that now they've committed to doing Braun Breaker versus Carmelo Hayes makes it look like he's not been moved in the draft. Now, who knows? They could just be doing this to try and make Braun Breaker getting drafted a surprise, and then they'll drop the match. But it did seem a bit weird that Carmelo Hayes would call him out and they'd actually get a response. But I guess if they want to go with realism, this would look realistic, because then it makes it look like the draft is completely out of the blue and it's not like a staged, predetermined draft. So, I mean, I guess it's cool if they do that. It's just normally with WWE, you don't expect them to commit to shit like this unless they actually plan on going through with it. So we'll see if Braun Breaker gets drafted or not. After that, then we moved on to the next match, which I believe was the... What was it? I can't even fucking remember. Alright, so we get a pre-recorded promo up next with Roxanne Perez. She talks about how she got into WWE as a kid. Her friends were into Barbies and princesses, and she enjoyed that too, but she never really wanted to be one of them. And then one day she started watching wrestling. She seen the Bella, she seen AJ Lee, she seen Lita, she seen Becky Lynch, and all of a sudden she wanted to be a wrestler. Now she wears pigtails in her hair to represent all the little girls that watch her and want to grow up to be wrestlers. Well, first of all, she grew up watching a really shit period of wrestling. Second of all, it feels like she just stole this character off of Bayley. It's like she's just here for the fans. Oh, look at me. I was a fan and I made it, so you can make it too. People say about Roxanne Perez should be called up. I just don't see it. I don't see what she's got. In the ring, she's pretty good for her age and stuff like that, but she's extremely small. No character, no personality or anything like that. She's just a Bayley rip-off. So I'm not sure she is, at the moment, ready to be called up, but I guess we'll see. And she stakes a claim that she's going to win the NXT title and that she's going to do it for all the little girls out there. I mean, is that supposed to impress us? Are we supposed to get behind Roxanne Perez because she fights for all the little 8, 9-year-olds watching? I mean, that doesn't do anything for me, but I mean, whatever. I think you need more to that than a character. It's like the original Bayley character. I never quite understood how anyone could like Bayley. I mean, she came out dressed like a child, acted like a child. It was just fucking weird. I get it. I mean, that character can be for the kids, but I mean, how can you, as an adult, really get behind that? And for me, I've not really been into this Roxanne Perez character. I mean, is what it is. What we got next was Joe Gacy. You know, he's calling himself Just Joe. He approaches Joe Coffey. He says that he's the smartest member of Gallas, therefore he wants him to give the Diads a shot at the title next week. And then The Rock's daughter appears, looking manlier than I think I've ever seen her look. The Gallas boys say, no, you ain't getting a shot. Joe Gacy says that how about we have a match, and if I lose, then the Diads never get a title shot again. But if I beat you, then the Diads get a rematch against Gallas, since they weren't the ones to be pinned. Joe Coffey's like, well, it's not my fault. The Diads never got pinned, but he likes the stipulations, so he agrees to a match. Then we got Brooks Jensen and Kiana James versus Josh Briggs and Fallon Henley up next. Probably the most consistently booked thing in wrestling for like the past 6 months. Mixed tag match. I mean, the match was okay. At first, it was obvious Josh Briggs didn't want to attack Brooks Jensen, but after a while, I think he just got bored. He got frustrated, he got annoyed, I think he got sick of his ass, so he starts hitting him. We get the fight. Booker T's on commentary talking about how you don't want to do this to your brother, but sometimes you have to. Vic Joseph thinks this might resolve things between the two, but Booker T's like, that an ass whipping ain't going to solve anything. The guy's in love. We get the match. Kiana James tries to cheat. She throws Brooks her bag in, but Brooks doesn't manage to grab the bag in time. Then he goes against the ropes, and this knocks Kiana James off the ropes. And Josh Briggs hits like a clothesline lariat. Not quite as good as Bradshaw's. I mean, nowhere near as good as Bradshaw's, but it was good enough to get the win on Brooks Jensen. And Josh Briggs and Fallon Henley pick up the victory. After the match, Kiana James is angry with Brooks. She goes to, Brooks Jensen tells Kiana James, it's okay, we've still got each other, we're still together. Then she goes to slap Brooks, but Brooks grabs her hand and stops, and he's like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to hit me? I thought you loved me. And then Kiana James screams at him, I never loved you, before walking off. Yeah, Brooks Jensen is like kind of stood there, heartbroken, I guess. Kind of feel sad for him. And then Josh Briggs comes out and puts his arm around Brooks, and Brooks puts his head on Briggs. So, I mean, I guess maybe we're going to see Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs now back together, now that Kiana James has revealed her true intentions. Where does it go now for this storyline? I'm surprised it didn't drag this out a bit longer, because, I mean, we could have Kiana James. Maybe next week she'll apologise. I wouldn't say this is the end of it. I would be shocked if they ended it right here, because they've spent like months and months and months on this. So for me, if they simply just threw it away because they lost one match, I think that would be a bit, I don't know, it'd be a bit cheap, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Kiana James tries to wrap Briggs around, or Brooks even, around her finger and apologise to him next week. But, I mean, that was that. I mean, the match was pretty decent. It was a decent match for what it was. Then we got, like, a package here for some guy. Apparently he's going to debut next week. I'm pretty sure it said next week, or maybe it said next, but it says Obafemi is going to debut next. I thought it said next week, but then he comes out next, and it's a big guy, and he's coming out, and it's got his like measurements and stuff, what he can squat, what he weighs, what he can lift, and all this stuff. And it's like, how does that impress us? This isn't real competition. This is not weightlifting world championships. It's fucking professional wrestling. We don't care about how strong this guy is. Now, it's different with Mark Henry, because he was the legit world's strongest man, and they thought they would like bring that into his character, that he was a silverback and he could legit, snap you in half because he is the world's strongest man. But they're just trying to praise this guy. They're trying to tell us we should be impressed because this guy is strong. No, I mean, there's a lot of strong people in fucking wrestling. Most of the guys in wrestling are strong. That's not enough. It's not enough to be impressed about. So this guy can lift weights and we're supposed to think he's great? No. He came out, I thought he was boring as fuck. He's got a boring name, boring looking trunks, boring attire, boring look. There's nothing, he just looks like a guy that would go to the gym and lift weights. So yeah, Obafemi, I'm not that impressed with him. I guess we'll see if he turns out to be any good or not. But yeah, I see this guy being an absolute flop. Then we seen Sol Ruka get attacked backstage by somebody with some mad camera set up, but we didn't get to see who it was, so I don't know who it was, but I don't really care. Gigi Dolan then comes out, she grabs Fick's headset and she rants about JC Jane, saying, you want to talk about my scumbag family? Well, next week my brother's going to be here and he's going to watch me pound your face in. So yeah, Gigi Dolan looking to get some revenge on JC Jane next week. Then we go backstage, Charlie Dempsey and Drew Gulak are talking about another title match against Wes Lee. They say nobody remembers who wins the first battle. It's all about who wins the war. Well, trust me, no one's going to remember Charlie Dempsey or Drew Gulak, regardless of how many wars they win, because they both fucking suck. So, yeah, there you go. And Drew Gulak says that next week he's going to get a title shot against Lee, and he reminds him that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Then we got Tyler Bate. He walked into Wes Lee's locker room, says, here, maybe you need some help next week. And Wes Lee's like, yeah, sure, why not? And then they promise to do some like meditation, and then they sit out and they're going to watch the main event together. I thought it was a little bit gay-like, but I mean, what fucking ever. Tyler Bate and Wes Lee, could they be a new tag team? What's in it for Tyler Bate? Does he want a shot for the North American title? Maybe, but I don't know. I just thought it was a bit weird. But they sit down in their locker room together and they're going to watch tonight's main event. So here we go. Tiffany Stratton, Roxanne Perez, Indi Hartwell competing for the NXT Women's Championship. I mean, the match, I'm going to be honest, it wasn't great. I felt like it was very sloppy. Now, I think there was a legit injury to Indi Hartwell during the match. Tiffany Stratton does like a moonsault to the outside onto both Stratton and Perez. It looks like Indi's did I say Stratton and Perez? I meant Hartwell and Perez, and it looks like Hartwell kind of got her leg trapped underneath her when she was taking the fall, and it might have sprained her knee or whatever, because then she disappeared from the match for a while, and it turned into a one-on-one match between Stratton and Perez. But then towards the end, Indi Hartwell rushes out, and she never really done anything. She came out and hit like some strikes, like running clotheslines, running forearms, but she didn't do any sort of moves that would require you to stand and lift your opponent or put any sort of weight on your legs. So that makes me think that this injury could be legit. Tiffany Stratton then hit the moonsault on Perez. She tried to get the cover, but Indi Hartwell pulled her out, then ran into the ring and did like a falling clothesline or something. A really poor looking move on Perez, and got the 1-2-3. So Indi Hartwell wins, celebrates with the title. She retains the title, but in all honesty, it looked like Tiffany Stratton got screwed. So I'm assuming they're setting up here for Tiffany Stratton versus Indi Hartwell at Battleground, and I actually think Tiffany Stratton will win the title. When it's one-on-one, I think Tiffany Stratton will prove what she's been saying for a long time now, and that is that Indi Hartwell is beatable. But you think that's the end of the show, guys, and it turns out it's not, because where are Pretty Deadly? I'll tell you where they are. They're in the back of the trunk, and the family just throw their gay ass into the river. They're sleeping with the Fishies. They are gone from NXT. The family look at each other. They're happy with their night's work. It was an easy night for them. They jump back into the car and they drive off. So there you go. Pretty Deadly got the 2 dimes treatment. They've been thrown away, thrown in the river. I'm going to assume that they've been written off NXT, that they're dead, and that they'll probably appear in either Raw or SmackDown as part of the draft. So yeah, I really liked the ending here. You know, you thought you were going to end with the generic title celebration, but no, we get Pretty Deadly getting thrown into the river. So yeah, great. I want to see more from Tony D and the family. Tony D, I love this Tony D character. I mean, if you're into any sort of mafia stuff, if you're into The Sopranos or The Godfather or anything like that, then you've got to enjoy this Tony D character. And that's what wrestling's about, characters. So for me, give us more Tony D. Hopefully, I know we spoke about him and Stacks winning tag team titles, but I look at Tony D, this guy should be a champion. I think he should be a singles champ. I mean, I'd take the tag title run if that's all we can get, but for me, he should be a champion in NXT. And that is it then for Spring Breaking, guys. It was a decent show. I enjoyed the opener. Obviously, I liked the family segments throughout the show. Thought Tiffany Stratton was the star, as always. But the main event, it was pretty poor. Now, whether that was due to the injury to Indi Hartwell, it might have been. Obafemi, I'm not impressed with him. I thought the NXT title match was okay. I mean, everything else. In the tag match, I thought the mixed tag match was good. The Cora Jade and Braun Breaker matches were pretty short, especially Braun Breaker, but that was more or less just for him to annihilate Andrew Chase, so I wasn't expecting anything great for that. You know what? Solid show, man. I'm going to give it, we'll give it a 4 out of 10, maybe a 5 out of 10. I'll get a 5 out of 10, guys. It was decent. It was decent. So yeah, that's it. Let us know what you think down below. I will catch you in the next one. And yeah, NXT Spring Breaking 2023 gets a 5 out of 10. Till next time, though. Peace.